Let me say a special good evening to PNM leadership candidate, Ms. Karen Nunez Tesheira. Pleasant good evening, ma'am.
Good evening to you. Is it, I call you Mikey?
You can call me Mikey, ma'am. That's no problem.
Okay,
No
thank
problem.
you, because I'm not quite sure. Is there another name besides Mikey?
No, that's fine. Mikee K, they call me Mikee K for sure, but that's fine.
Yes.
I want to thank you so
Right.
much for
Yes.
linking with us. We do
Happy
have.
to be with you, and cold evening, but that's how I like it.
Thank you
And
so much.
pleasant evening to your listeners.
Thank you so much. We are, of course, being looked at in Grenada and other parts of Eastern Caribbean. So my first question to you is, who is Karen Nunez Tesheira?
Oh dear, that's such a very open-ended question. From a personal level, I consider myself one-time a wife. No longer. My husband is deceased. Definitely a mother and a grandmother on a personal level. As a professional, I love of the Caribbean. Anyone who I have taught at the law school or the faculty of law would know that commitment through my writings, because any textbook I've written, there are 3 of them, I've written on every island, Grenada and Anguilla. It didn't matter how small the island was. We're all part of the Caribbean. So I am a committed CARICOM Caribbean person and a true Trini, love of my country. I, surprisingly, for some people, I'm a little domesticated, or they may not seem so. I think I can cook very well. Surprise, surprise.
Glad to hear
And I guess caught between the 2 worlds of the feminists and not being the feminists. I'm caught between the traditionalists and the feminists. And I guess a politician at heart and a lawyer by profession.
Yeah. And I'm certain, since you've thrown your hat in the ring, people have asked, Ms. Nunez Tesheira, why? I mean, you can sit at home, you can travel, you can go about your business. Why take on such a task? Why take on such a challenge to lead the People's National Movement?
Well, one, I was approached, so I didn't have it on my radar at the time. I loved writing articles and doing interviews and giving a contribution in that way. I've written a textbook on family law, so I was still doing writing as in terms of law and so on. So that why? Because it gives a life a sense of purpose, a sense of meaning, and if you can contribute to your country, as I hope I can, and put in that situation as few people are in terms of my time and not having the commitment that I would have had if my husband was still alive. My children are adults. And I was Minister of Finance. I started in a cabinet in a very senior position. So I think it's a whole mixture of a number of factors.
Brings me to my question. Recently you stated that the PNM does not have the political leader it needs. If you could expand on that, because people say, listen, he was elected. He was the one that was chosen. And you're making the statement that the party does not have the political leader it needs. Please expand on that.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's just what I am saying. I think if you read the papers, more so than ever, the criticism, which I think all leaders will get. But I think what has happened, it has been amplified, and certainly it has not helped by what the Prime Minister himself has said in his public pronunciation and his ministers. So do we need a leader that speaks to people in a way that is disrespectful, talking to them not only in what he says, but the tone he uses? So that just goes to one aspect of it. But really the major thing is that in leadership, you are a leader of the entire country, not for a small, narrow part of the citizenry. And in my respectful opinion, the lack of implementation, the lack of enforcement of many laws that have required the big disparity between the what they call the income inequality. Those are the things that a prime minister should be looking at, and the vision and the mission, the implementation. I think it's weakest, from my view, is the lack of implementation of the many policies and laws that are sitting there still yet to be fully proclaimed, and the statements and the way that which he has spoken in the public domain to the citizen in a way that is, in my view, nearly being abusive almost.
Yeah, but some folks will say, well, that's just his persona. That's just how he is characteristically. But you said that clear vision and leadership is desperately needed.
Yeah.
When you talk about that vision, please
Yeah.
share with what vision? Because, it's like I'm part of a party, I'm
Mm-hmm.
part of a political entity, and
Mm-hmm.
I trust whatever decision is made is going to be made in the interest of not just the members, but extension all of Trinidad and Tobago. So
Right.
where is that vision lacking? You would say, if you had
Well,
to point out now, where?
okay, so I can give you, can I get feedback? Sorry if I seem rude, guys. Am I
No,
constantly
I
getting a
can hear you loud
feedback?
and clear. We're hearing you loud and clear. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Okay, but where's that vision now? Well, the very fact that, well, I could use so many examples. The fiscal deficit that we have, over the last 5 or 6 years, we have incurred a lot of debt. Over 42% of the debt that we have incurred as a result of the deficit and the borrowings, all the constant borrowing. We've seen the foreign exchange reserves dropping from in 2011 from about, or 2014 from 11 point something billion to 6.8 billion, and it's being propped up. It's being propped up by bonds, which is debt. They've taken on debt that way, taking out money out of the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, and yes, it's special drawing rights. We're not seeing any there's a negative movement in relation to the our foreign exchange reserve. In terms of growth, we've had this is the first year that we have not had a negative growth position. I think it's 0.22. Well, anyways, it's just on the cusp. But when you look at countries like Barbados and even the ECU countries like yourself and Jamaica, you see those countries went through COVID, and yet you're seeing a positive growth in those countries of 6.4, 8.4. I think for Barbados is over 11%. And we are an energy economy, and yet we're not seeing the opportunity, the vision to create the diversification necessary for us to earn foreign exchange.
All
We
right.
are sitting on so many opportunities, cultural tourism. We are sitting on the opportunities with the agro industry, and we simply don't have the natural gas either. That is the other fallacy. Every year, the natural gas production has fallen. I think in the last 2 years, it's fallen almost. I wouldn't say by half, less than half, but it has
Yeah,
fallen
yeah,
substantially.
close enough. Close enough.
Yeah.
But let me ask you, I mean, you're quite versed in what's happening as far as global economics. How far behind are we?
Yeah.
Because we are hearing that there are countries who have come together and have backed their dollar against gold rather than oil and other resources. Okay, now if that's the reality, how far are we behind when it comes to understanding the changes that are taking place globally?
Well, I mean, I think every country, I think that when he talked about backing with the gold, it is because they wanted to get away from the, although supposedly the U.S. currency is not the currency that is the determining factor for many countries in terms of the value of their money. But I think that is happening because more and more countries like China, countries like Russia, and a lot of the Asian countries are fighting, I suppose, a geopolitical fight, and one way in doing that is detaching its reliance or its dependency on the U.S. currency, determining the price of goods, especially the price of energy products. So that it's almost like, in a sense, you say you might be going backwards because before the meeting they had just after World War II, the Brent
Right.
meeting where they decided they would not use gold as the standard, and they moved away from that. But I suspect that what you're seeing now is that there is now a kind of rebellion in a sense, and it's playing out itself because definitely China seeing itself as a world power, wants to see itself as a world power, but it's like the road going to nearly every country in the world, really, and establishing a real presence in a lot of countries. And we're seeing Russia almost partnering with China in terms of allowing the exchange between rubles and yuan. So what I would say we're seeing a change, and I think the change has a lot to do with weakening the strength of the United States and strengthening the position of Russia and China and even India.
Yeah. And if we don't have that vision, if we don't have that understanding how things are changing on the global economic market, then how are we going to be as part of the players? Where do we fit in? And I guess that's part of the vision you're talking about.
Yeah, and the thing about it, though, we have to understand in this grand scheme of things, we're not even the size of the population of a borough in New York. So, but what we do have, and what the world still wants, what you can't get around is location.
Right.
And which is why the International Financial Center, when I was in government, we had reached as far as having Lehman Brothers sign an MOU to set up an office in the International Financial Center, which was on the waterfront. Then the global financial crisis came, and you know what happened there. But still, the prospect of having an International Financial Center out there, and it's vision. Singapore did it, Dubai did it, and then you could say in those two countries you have benevolent dictators. So you could say well they could do it because whoever is the man in charge is the man in charge for years and years, so there's no change in government. But then even you look at Ireland. Ireland was not Dubai. Ireland is not Singapore. And yet there was one man in Ireland, but he got himself in trouble, that is true. But he was one man who had a vision to change Ireland into an international financial center, and he succeeded. And in fact, we had one of the persons who had done the drafting of the legislation working with us in Trinidad to draft the legislation to start up our international financial center. And I had gone once, and the Prime Minister came on a second occasion to look at the way they had set up their international financial center. And we were looking at doing the same thing here because we knew we had a lot of things going for us. The language of commerce is English. We are a stable country. We are, I know Jamaica might want to think so, but when you talk about a financial center within the CARICOM region, yes, Ghana is giving us a run for money now, but that's our CARICOM brother.
Yeah.
So we see Trinidad and Tobago having also education. I mean, the number of persons who have benefited from a tertiary education in this country in the last 2 years are well able to take up positions in accounting, positions in law, positions in the areas in which an international financial center requires that type of expertise.
All right. So
there's so much vision for us, and I see that as part. I'm not one of those who say it can't happen. If the Singaporean Prime Minister, if Dubai, if the Irish so like that, where would they be? You have to have vision, and you have to have a mission.
And that's very important. And I want to ask you two questions here. Now, you say when you make these comments about the party, you're not bad-mouthing the party, but it's the responsibility of members to point out deficiencies. Now, I am quite certain that you've heard all that is being said about you, and these are people that you would have known and you would have served with and would have been former colleagues. When you say this, I mean, how fair is it when you talk about members pointing out deficiencies, when it's the very same people who have to depend on their bread and butter to be the yes man and yes woman in the party? Is it about serving their personal interests, or do you believe that they need to rise above that? In all reality, how can they?
Exactly, and you made a very good point. So number one, I do not really listen to what they say. That's something I learned from Mrs. Manning many years ago. And I really don't, because I keep you have to have a laser focus. Even Mr. Pandey had said, if you keep looking through the rearview mirror, you won't be able to go forward. So they're doing what they have to do for whatever reason. It's not for me to stand in judgment of them, and you're right. I mean, many of them are saying for their stuff, and you really can't be too harsh, because I know from my own experience, once you lose power, once you're no longer in office, it's not just a question that you lose your position, but you get blacklisted. I mean, I had to leave Trinidad for 4 years, and I was working in Barbados as a senior lecturer at the Faculty of Law. But the reason I went to Barbados is because yes, you could have assets, but you need income. And I had a daughter in medical school. So, if I felt the pressure, and I had other colleagues of mine who had to give in their cars that they just bought. I had colleagues of mine who had to have their family support them for a few years before they could get on their feet. So I'm not standing in judgment of anyone there. I mean, if they feel that the right thing to do is to mudsling and say bad things, it's really reflecting badly on them, because the public has come out and criticized them. I haven't had to say anything. The public has told them that's not the way to go. And I think that has become more mutual. I don't think you're getting too much of that talk. And to be honest, it's only time it matters is if you responded. And I'm not giving it oxygen. And, they do what they have to do. I do what I have to do. And my interest is the party and ultimately the country.
Let me ask you, finally, if you're not successful in your bid for leadership, are you going to walk away? Is that going to be the end of Karen Nunez Tesheira? Is that going to be it?
I did not laugh because of your question. I anticipated a question like that because I say no, I will not. And the reason I will say no, I will not, because I won't call names, but I can think immediately of two persons who were not successful in their bid, and then they just disappeared. And I said to myself, well, how serious were you? Now, the problem, of course, would be for me is that in order to be able to really be effective in terms of making change, you've got to be inside the party leadership, which is why there's so much resistance to me getting in there, because I'm not an MP, I'm not a senator. I didn't want to be an MP or senator. I chose that because I didn't think I was a good fit. But at the same time, for me to have influence and be able to do anything, I have to get in the inside, which means I have to be part of the party leadership. And of course, once I'm not there, my voice will not be the voice that I would like it to be, but it will not be the voice that will turn away. It will be the voice that has been the voice for the last 2 years, writing, as I've always written, going on shows and doing my best. Obviously, that won't have the same impact because at the end of the day, people have said they want change. People have said they can't take any more of this. No, it's in their hands. Literally, it is in their hands. Literally and metaphorically, it is in their hands. So it is up to the people to make that decision, and then we shall see.
All right. I know I said that was my final question, but this is definitely my final question, and I want I want you to talk about it from the perspective of all that you've heard and so forth. Do you believe if an election was called tomorrow, whether it be local or general, do you believe that the PNM would be victorious?
That's a good question.
That's why I asked it.
Yeah, this is a good question. Why I said is because they're clearly scared. I mean, if you look at the results in Tobago, but more to the point, to Trinidad, I say 2019 BC, before COVID, Kamala, people thought she was a spy. I don't want to be disrespectful to her. Kamala Processor, the opposition leader, she had she gained 2 seats in the regional local government election, which is almost like a dress rehearsal. But more importantly, on the popular vote, she had gotten 53-point-something% of the vote, while the popular votes, while the PNM got 40-something%. And what that says, at that point in time, people looked at her as a spent force. Oh, don't worry, Kamala is no threat to us. And the PNM threw a lot of money behind that campaign. So I will say that a day in politics is a lifetime. If they call it tomorrow, I don't know what. Kamala has put forward a good front, I think, except for 1 or 2 people. I don't know why she has them in the party, because they are a symbol of all the things that went wrong with her party and made people vote her out. But I will not write her off, as she has seen that she's not to be written off. And people are so disgruntled and so unhappy with the PNM. What it will be up to? It will be up to Kamala. Yeah. It will really be up to her, because at this point in time, people are ready to vote out the PNM under the leadership. You see, like how Trump was the leader of the
Republicans and so forth.
Republicans?
Yeah.
So people may be Republicans, but they don't want Trump. And people may be PNM, but they do not want Rowley. That is what I believe. And with Kamala, I keep saying Kamala, but maybe everybody calls her Auntie Kamala. I will not write her off. And if the Tobago had more time, I also don't know where they would reach. So I won't say definitively the PNM will win, because more and more they seem to be under a lot of pressure, and that one cannot underestimate what the UNC will be able to mount.
All right. Closing comment, go right ahead quickly. Go ahead.
Oh, I thought that was the end. Well, the closing comment is that many people have said, why Tesheira, like she's fighting the PNN? On the contrary, I am not. I'm not mudslinging. I'm not movie-langing. I'm not calling people names. I'm not indulging in any of those things. We tried to come to an amicable resolution of these matters by writing. We have written several times to no avail. So what does one do? Everyone does this. Anytime you have or people do this, if there is a difficulty and you cannot resolve it, the right way and the civilized way and the democratic way is to turn to the court. And that's what we've done. Whatever the court decides, the ruling is going to be given on Wednesday at 3 p.m. The interim injunction, which was heard today. When you called me, I was listening to it, but I came out of the hearing because I had given a commitment to you, and the judge ruled that he would give his decision on Wednesday at 3 p.m. So what I have done, I hopefully at the end of the day, the PNM will say, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, and it shall prevail, because we stand for civilized, democratic ways in settling our differences and not mudslinging and going down into the trenches.
All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Nunez Tesheira. All the best to you and your team. Thank you.
You were very kind, and I enjoyed the interview, I have to say.
Thank you so much. All the best to you and your team. Good luck.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.